23 and a half minutes to 8.
You're listening to Morning Report. Well, the government will spell out the details of its child poverty reduction law today. Lowering the number of children living in poverty and setting targets to achieve this was one of Jacinda Ardern's key election promises, and Nationals pledged to ensure the government is held accountable. It says it made big gains when it was in office, including 60,000 fewer children living in a benefit-dependent household. The number of 18-year-olds who don't achieve NCEA Level 2 was halved, and rheumatic fever dramatically reduced. With us now is the opposition leader Bill English in the Wellington studio. Good morning.
Good morning, Sue.
Now, they're scrapping targets, the government, these public service targets. Is that irresponsible?
It is. Look, they're setting out to deal with half of the poverty story. So increasing incomes for families with children will be achieved by the 1st of April with the package passed before Christmas. They took the 2017 budget, added some to it, and that's going through. So that will lift incomes, particularly for those with the highest housing costs. But the other half of the equation is the social dysfunction that locks people into long-term deprivation, whether it's recidivist offending, family violence, low educational achievement. And the targets they've just scrapped are the ones that were focusing the public service on working together to change the lives of those people who were and are locked into that longer term deprivation.
So does that mean lose the targets, you lose the data, you lose how you can actually put your money and where you can do it?
And you lose the focus on real people with real problems in real streets and houses, where you do, because it's hard, you need targets that focus the public service on it. So we support the idea of lifting incomes. We've got surpluses. Although I'd have to say, even there with the legislation, it's now largely symbolic because the government has used up its spare cash. It's made these decisions about the family incomes, that's good, but then it made this other decision to provide the first free year of tertiary education free. That's used up all the rest of the spare cash. And if they get this legislation through, there's not much they can actually do now, given their own fiscal constraints, to lift family incomes again.
OK, you're saying, though, that you're going to use the Official Information Act to ask for this target-related information from government departments anyway to carry on tracking it. Is this an abuse of the OIA system?
No, not at all. I mean, here's a good example. The experts tell us one of the very good indicators of good maternal health care and care for new babies is having women enrol with their lead maternity carer in the first trimester of pregnancy. And only around 70% of women do. And of course, as you'd expect, those who most need the care, who are in very vulnerable situations, are the least likely to enrol.
But to take that particular one,
Let me finish. We set a target back in May to get to, along with the sector, to get 90% of those women enrolled in their first trimester. Now, the government's got rid of that. And the question is, why would you get rid of it? Because it's such a good thing to do.
But isn't there also quite a lot of potential wastage in the system in terms of people enrolling? Because, as many women will know, first trimester of a pregnancy may not necessarily lead to you staying pregnant and having a baby.
Well, that may be the case, but the experts tell us it's a very good indicator. And if it's like these good targets, when they're effective, they're a way into a whole lot of other problems. So if you've got a woman who's not enrolling because they're in a violent relationship, or they've got addiction problems or housing problems and they're transitory, then
but the target doesn't tell you the reason behind it, though, does it?
No, but it gets the services, the health and social services, in there to dig into those reasons. And that's precisely the point of the targets. It's not so much the data itself, it's where it takes you to solve the underlying problems. Half of that problem would be income. Government's taking some steps on that. But the other half is changing these lives so that they aren't locked into this long-term deprivation.
OK, so targets are good there. What about child poverty? Are you going to vote with Labour on this bill?
Well, we haven't seen the bill yet. We've been offered an officials briefing today, the day the bill is being introduced, so we have no ability to influence it. That's not a good way to conduct a bipartisan approach. It's pretty limited, I have to say. So we'll have a look at it. We want to see that it's more than symbolism. And as I said, whatever happens with the legislation, this new government has used up all its spare cash according to its own limits. and they don't have much ability actually over the next few years to do anything beyond the 1st of April this year.
Labour's hoping for a consensus. Are they likely to get it, for example, in targets? Will you back targets if that's part of it?
Well, they haven't gone about it in a very sensible way if they want consensus. First, we've had no opportunity to influence the bill, and secondly, they've abolished the other half of the system that you need. I mean, New Zealand has a fantastic opportunity here. Sustainable surpluses, the ability to lift incomes at the bottom end, the ability to dig in and do the long-term investment in dealing with deprivation. And the government is doing its best to mess that up.
Isn't the game changer, though, taking child poverty into account and looking at that for every budget?
I don't think it's a game changer at all. I mean, governments have always done that. Legislating it doesn't change it for a single child. It may help with the focus, but as I've said, if you want to focus on lifting incomes, then they've done most of what they can do with the cash that they have for the next 3 or 4 years.
Isn't that, though, essentially, by putting it into the budget, the way of focusing the public service on it in a different way?
Well, look, what they're talking, as I understand it, and we haven't seen the legislation, they're talking about legislating some high-level income targets for which no one's particularly accountable and which no one's really going to be held responsible for. The hard bit that was in place where there were people accountable, which did make a government responsible for actually changing lives, they've got rid of the hard bit, and now they're going to try and legislate the easy bit.
Thank you very much for your time this morning. The National Party leader, Bill English. It's 16 to 8.
Well, one of the people who deals with child poverty at the sharp end is the Wellington City Commissioner, Trish Malcolm.